You have probably killed this plant more times than you can count. You saw the yellow flower in your lawn, felt that little flash of irritation, grabbed a tool, pulled at the leaves, snapped the stem, maybe sprayed the whole patch and thought, good, gone. Except it came back again and again and again. And here is the part most people never realize. The same stubborn plant they fight every spring was once gathered for food, brewed into bitter drinks, roasted like coffee, cooked like greens, turned into syrups, fed to animals, used by foragers, respected by herbalists, and noticed by people who understood one thing we forgot: a plant that refuses to die may be hiding its strength somewhere. With dandelions, that place is underground. The flower gets all the attention, the white seed head gets all the blame, the leaves get called messy, but the part people try hardest to rip out of the soil may be the most valuable part of all: the root. That long, stubborn taproot you hate because it breaks off in the ground and grows back later is exactly the part people once dried, roasted, and brewed into a dark, bitter coffee-like drink. It is the part that stores the plant's energy. It is the reason the dandelion survives mowing, pulling, heat, poor soil, and your personal war against it. So before you poison another patch, before you throw another root into the trash, before you look at those yellow flowers like they are a failure of your lawn, pause. Because this plant may be telling you something. Not that every dandelion should be eaten, not that it replaces medicine, not that it is safe from every yard. That would be careless. This video is for education and general interest. Dandelion has a long history as a food plant and traditional herb, but it is not a replacement for medical care.
If you have gallbladder problems, kidney disease, liver disease, allergies to plants like ragweed, daisies, chrysanthemums or marigolds, or if you take blood thinners, diuretics, lithium, diabetes medication or prescription medicine, speak with a qualified professional before using dandelion regularly. And never harvest from sprayed lawns, roadsides, dog areas, public parks with unknown chemicals, industrial soil, or any place you do not fully trust. That warning is not meant to scare you. It is meant to keep the story honest, because the point is not to turn dandelion into a magic plant. The point is much sharper than that. The point is that millions of people have been destroying something useful because nobody taught them how to see it. Look closely at a dandelion. At first, it looks too ordinary to matter. A flat circle of jagged leaves pressed against the grass, a hollow stem, a yellow flower. Later, that round white seed head that breaks apart in the wind and sends tiny parachutes floating across the yard. That is the part people fear: the spreading, the returning, the refusal to stay gone. A dandelion does not politely ask permission to exist. It appears in lawns, cracks, paths, old garden beds, fence lines, neglected corners, and places where other plants struggle. You mow it, and it comes back. You pull the top, and it comes back. You leave part of the root, and the plant seems to take that as a challenge. To a homeowner chasing a perfect green lawn, that is maddening. To someone who understands plants, that is information. Because a plant that survives like that has a system. And dandelion's system is not the yellow flower. It is the root. The root reaches down like an anchor. It stores energy. It helps the plants return after damage. It gives dandelion the power to wait underground while the leaves above get cut, eaten, stepped on, or pulled. That is why the plant feels impossible to defeat. You are not just fighting a flower, you are fighting a storage tank under the soil. And that storage tank is exactly what people once used. For generations, dandelion roots were dug, washed, dried, roasted, and brewed into a dark drink. During hard times, when coffee was expensive or unavailable, roasted dandelion root became a practical substitute. It did not taste exactly like coffee. It still does not. It has its own character: earthy, bitter, toasted, nutty, sometimes almost caramel-like when roasted well. One person sees a root and thinks, trash. Another person sees the same root and thinks, I can roast that. That is not a small difference. That is the difference between ignorance and knowledge. Same plant, same yard, different eyes. And once you understand that, Dandelion becomes more than a plant story. It becomes a story about how often we throw things away before we understand them. We do this constantly. We dismiss what is common. We ignore what is free. We trust things more when they come in bottles, bags, labels, and expensive packaging. If something grows under our feet, we assume it must be worthless. If something costs $30 in a health store, suddenly we respect it. Dandelion exposes that habit. It is everywhere, so people think it is nothing. But abundance is not the same as uselessness. Sometimes the most useful thing is common because it is strong enough to be common. Now, do not misunderstand me. You may need to remove dandelions from some places. If they are in a vegetable bed, a path, or an area you want clear, manage them. A useful plant can still be in the wrong spot. But treating every dandelion as an enemy, that is where the mistake begins, because this plant has several gifts. The leaves are food, the flowers are usable, the roots are the hidden treasure, and even the seed head teaches you how brilliantly this plant survives. Let's start with the leaves.
Dandelion leaves are edible when properly identified and harvested from clean places. They grow in a rosette close to the ground, often with jagged edges that gave the plant its name. Dandelion comes from the French Dandelion, meaning lion's tooth, because the leaves look like sharp little teeth. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Young leaves are usually less bitter, especially before the plant flowers. People have eaten them raw in small amounts, cooked them like greens, added them to soups, sautéed them with garlic, mixed them with milder leaves, or used them in spring dishes when fresh green food was precious. But here is the honest part. They are bitter, not polite bitter, not trendy bitter. They can taste like the plant is looking you in the eye and asking whether you are awake. If your tongue is trained by sweet snacks, soft bread, creamy sauces, salty chips and drinks designed to make you want more, dandelion greens may feel aggressive at first. That does not mean they are bad, it means they are real. Bitter greens were valued in many traditional food cultures, especially in spring. After a long season of heavier foods, stored grains, salted meats and fewer fresh greens, bitter plants were a signal. The ground was waking, the body could taste sharp green life again. That is not just food, that is seasonal rhythm. People used to notice these things because they had to. They did not eat the same menu every month. The land changed, so the plate changed. Spring brought bitter greens, summer brought juicy fruits, autumn brought roots, winter brought stored foods. The dandelion was part of that rhythm, and the leaves carry nutrients. They can contain vitamin K, vitamin A, vitamin C, potassium, and other plant compounds. But that is exactly why some people need caution. Vitamin K matters for those on certain blood-thinning medications. Potassium can matter for people with kidney issues or medications that affect potassium.
Bitter greens may also bother sensitive stomachs. Natural does not mean automatically safe. That phrase should be repeated whenever wild plants are involved. Natural means powerful enough to respect. A little cooked dandelion leaf in a meal is one thing. Strong extracts, daily medicinal use, or large amounts while taking medication are something else. So use food wisdom. Start small. Know your body. Know your source. Know the plant. Now imagine a simple pan, a little olive oil, thin slices of garlic, a handful of clean young dandelion leaves. The greens hit the heat and soften. The bitterness becomes rounder. The garlic gives warmth. A squeeze of lemon cuts through it. A pinch of salt brings everything together. Suddenly, the plant you stepped over becomes a side dish. Not fancy, not soft, not trying to be lettuce. It has edge, and that edge is part of its value. Modern food often tries to remove all resistance. It wants every bite to be easy, sweet, salty, creamy, crispy, soft. Food that asks nothing from you. Food you can eat while staring at a screen without noticing your hand moving. Dandelion greens do not let you do that. They make you pay attention. That alone is rare. Now the flower. This is the part everyone recognises, the yellow head pushing up through the grass, bright and shameless, as if it has no idea it is unwelcome. Children usually understand it before adults do. They pick it, they make chains, they hold it under someone's chin. They blow the seed heads later and laugh as the tiny parachutes drift away. Children do not hate dandelions until adults teach them to. That is worth thinking about. To a child, the flower is a toy, a colour, a little piece of spring. To a homeowner, it is a warning sign. To a bee, it may be food. To a forager, it may be an ingredient. Same flower, 4 worlds. Dandelion flowers have been used in syrups, jellies, fritters, infused oils, vinegars, and country-style wines. Some people make a thick golden syrup from the petals and call it dandelion honey, though it is usually made with sugar and lemon, so let's not pretend it becomes a health food simply because a wild flower is involved. It is a sweet treat with a wild ingredient. That is enough. The flowers can also be battered and fried into little fritters. They can be infused into oil for traditional skin preparations. The petals can add colour to recipes. The flavour is milder than the leaves, though the green base of the flower can bring bitterness. If you want a sweeter preparation, people often remove the green parts and use mostly yellow petals. But harvest with restraint. Do not strip every flower from a patch. Dandelions can provide early food for pollinators in many places, especially when few other flowers are available. Bees, hoverflies, and other insects may visit them. That does not mean you can never pick one. It means you should not act like the entire patch belongs only to you. Take some, leave some. A good forager should look more like a guest than a thief. That is a better way to move through the world. Now the seed head. The white puffball is the part that makes people panic. One gust of wind and the plant has sent its future across the lawn. Each seed has a tiny parachute. It rises, floats, spins, and lands wherever chance allows. It looks delicate. It is actually a brilliant escape plan. Above ground, dandelion travels by air. Below ground, it holds on with a taproot, anchored and airborne. That is why the plant survives. Most plants would be lucky to have one strong strategy. Dandelion has 2 that people notice immediately. It spreads with the wind and returns from the root. No wonder we struggle to control it. But the root is where the promised gold really is. If you have ever tried to dig a dandelion out, you know the feeling. You get the leaves in your hand. You pull. The top comes loose. Maybe a bit of root comes up. Maybe it snaps. You feel satisfied for about 8 seconds. Then, days later, fresh leaves appear from the same spot. The plant was not gone. The root was still there. That root is a taproot. It grows downward, sometimes deep, depending on the soil. It stores energy and helps the plant survive stress. It is the reason dandelion can be cut back and still return. The root is the plant's vault, and that vault is what people once harvested. Dandelion root contains inulin, a type of prebiotic fibre also found in plants like chicory root, Jerusalem artichoke, onions and garlic. Inulin can support beneficial gut bacteria for some people, but it can also cause gas, bloating or discomfort if someone takes too much too quickly or has a sensitive gut. That is how plants really work. Not like cartoons, not like miracle buttons, like complex living chemistry. A compound that helps one body may irritate another body. Dandelion root also contains bitter compounds. Bitter plants have long been used in food and herbal traditions to support appetite and digestion. We do not need to exaggerate that. We do not need to claim it cures anything. The basic idea is simple. Bitter taste sends signals. Your mouth responds. Your stomach responds. Your body notices. That is very different from eating something sweet and soft without awareness. Bitterness wakes you up, and maybe that is why we need it. Now picture the root harvest. Not a sprayed lawn, not a roadside, not a place where dogs run. A clean patch, a small digging fork, cool soil. You loosen the ground carefully, because if you yank too fast, the root snaps. You work around it. You pull slowly. Finally, the taproot comes out, dirty, rough, pale brown, completely unimpressive. No gold shine, no dramatic sparkle, just a root. Then the transformation begins. You wash off the soil, you scrub it, you cut it into small pieces, you dry it, then you roast it slowly. At first, it still smells like root. Plain, earthy, almost boring. Then the heat does its work, the colour deepens, the pieces turn brown, the smell changes, toasted, warm, bitter, nutty, a little like coffee, but wilder, rougher, less polished. You simmer it in water, the liquid darkens, you pour it into a cup, and suddenly the plant you were trying to kill becomes a drink. That is the moment people remember, because the reversal is physical, not just an idea. You can see it, smell it, taste it. A root from the lawn becomes something in your cup. That is why the root is gold, not because it is rare, because it was invisible to you, because you were trained to see it as waste, because it stores the plant's strength, because it turns the annoyance into value. The same thing that makes dandelion hard to kill is the thing that makes it useful, its root. That is a powerful lesson. Sometimes what irritates you about something is the clue to where its strength is hiding. Now, timing matters. Many people harvest dandelion roots in fall or early spring. In fall, after the plant has spent the growing season sending energy downward, roots may be thicker and richer. In early spring, before the plant puts all its energy into flowers, roots can still be worth harvesting. Timing changes flavour, size and character. Soil matters too. A dandelion growing in loose garden soil may have a long, easier root. A plant in compacted ground may be smaller, tougher, harder to clean. The plant tells you about the place. Once you start noticing that, your yard stops being a flat green surface and becomes a map. You begin seeing soil, moisture, compaction, pollinators, spray signs, pet paths, drainage, sunlight. That is what wild plants do when you start paying attention. They train your eyes. Now we need to talk about identification. This is not optional. A true dandelion usually grows as a rosette of jagged leaves from the base. The flower stem is hollow, leafless, and usually carries one yellow flower. When broken, the plant releases white, milky sap. The leaves do not climb up the flower stem. But beginners can still confuse plants. Some lookalikes are edible, some are less desirable, and some may not be appropriate to use. Plant identification is not a guessing game. If you are not sure, do not eat it. That sentence can save you from a bad day. Use a reliable local plant guide. Learn from experienced foragers. Compare more than one feature. Do not trust one photo. Do not trust an app alone. Do not teach children to taste random plants. Curiosity is good. Guessing is not. Now, where should you never harvest? Do not harvest from lawns treated with herbicides or pesticides, even if the plant looks healthy, even if it is huge, even if it is right outside your door. Do not harvest beside busy roads. Plants near traffic can be exposed to exhaust, brake dust, oil residue, heavy metals, and contaminated runoff. Do not harvest from dog walking strips. Do not harvest near industrial lots, railroad tracks, construction areas, drainage ditches, or old treated soil. Do not harvest from public parks unless you know whether spraying happens and whether harvesting is allowed. The plant being edible is only half the story. The place must be clean. That is where many beginners go wrong. They learn a plant name and immediately start grabbing it from anywhere. That is not foraging. That is gambling. A good forager asks two questions. What is the plant? Where did it grow? You need both answers. Now, why did people stop seeing dandelion as useful? The first reason is the lawn. The lawn is a strange cultural invention, a living surface treated like a carpet. It is supposed to be smooth, short, green, controlled, and empty of surprises. A dandelion ruins the illusion because it reminds everyone that the ground is alive and not fully under human command. The perfect lawn says, control.
The dandelion says, not so fast. That is why it bothers people more than it should. It is not only a plant, it is a tiny rebellion against the picture in someone's head. A second reason is the supermarket. When food comes only from shelves, you stop recognizing food under your feet. You know the price of salad greens in plastic boxes, but not the bitter leaves near the fence. You know coffee brands, but not roasted roots. You know supplement labels, but not the seasonal plants people once gathered. Knowledge breaks quietly. One generation stops gathering, the next stops recognizing, the next sprays. No dramatic announcement, no official ending, just forgetting. And then, one day, somebody says, you know you can use that plant, and people feel almost betrayed, not by the plant, by the forgetting. There is a third reason. Wild food became associated with poverty or desperation. For many families, gathering wild plants meant hard times. Later, convenience became status. Packaged food felt modern, perfect lawns felt respectable, store-bought greens felt safer, cleaner, more successful. So dandelion fell in reputation. From spring food to lawn embarrassment. That is a dramatic fall. And maybe that is why the comeback feels so satisfying, because the plant never changed, the culture did. Now let's stay honest about science. Dandelion has traditional uses as food and as an herb. The leaves have a reputation as bitter greens and mild diuretics. The root has been used in roasted drinks and bitter preparations. Some studies have examined dandelion extracts for antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, metabolic and digestive-related effects, often in lab or early research settings. But a lab study is not the same as a proven cure in people. A traditional use is not the same as a medical guarantee. A tea is not a replacement for diagnosis. That honest middle ground is enough. Dandelion does not need fake claims. It is already interesting. Edible leaves,
Usable flowers, roastable roots, pollinator value, soil presence, a long history in household food traditions. That is plenty. Now, there are people who should be careful or avoid it. If you are allergic to plants in the daisy family, dandelion may bother you. If you have gallbladder disease, bile duct obstruction, kidney disease, or serious liver issues, do not casually use dandelion preparations. If you take diuretics, lithium, blood thinners, diabetes medications, or other prescriptions, ask a professional about interactions. Pregnant or breastfeeding people should get guidance. Children should not be encouraged to eat wild plants without careful adult supervision. This may sound boring. Good. Boring safety advice keeps useful plants from becoming bad experiences. Now let's talk about taste again, because taste is where many people give up. Dandelion is bitter because it is not trying to be candy. That sounds obvious, but it matters.
We live in a food environment where bitterness has been pushed to the edge. So many products are engineered for immediate pleasure. Sweet, salty, soft, crunchy, creamy, snackable. They slide past your senses and ask for another bite before you have even decided whether you are full. Dandelion does the opposite. It slows you down. A raw leaf says, "Are you sure?" A roasted root says, "Sip slowly." A flower says, "Use me with care."
This plant is not designed for mindless eating, and maybe that is part of its value. Not medical value, behavioural value. It interrupts the autopilot. Think about that. How many eating problems begin with autopilot? You walk into the kitchen without hunger. You open a package because you are bored. You eat standing up because you are stressed. You chew while looking at your phone. Then suddenly the food is gone and you barely remember tasting it. A bitter green breaks that spell. You cannot ignore it. You must respond. That is not nothing.
Do not overharvest. The root takes more patience. It must be dug, cleaned, dried, roasted and brewed. That process is slower, which is part of why it feels valuable. You do not get it instantly. You work with it. And that work changes how you see the drink. A cup made from a root you dug yourself tastes different from something you bought without thinking. Not always better, different. Meaning changes flavour. Now let's talk about survival and why dandelion matters there. In survival knowledge, the most useful plants are often not the rarest. They are the common ones, the ones you can actually find. Dandelion grows across many regions, in many disturbed soils, near human life. Once properly identified, it offers multiple usable parts. Leaves for greens, flowers for food uses, roots for roasting or boiling. It will not keep a person alive alone. No single wild plant like this should be romanticized that way. But as part of a broader knowledge of edible plants, it is valuable because it is common and recognizable. That matters more than people think. A rare plant might impress people. A common plant might actually help them. Dandelion is common usefulness. That is its kind of gold. Now, dandelion can also tell you about soil. Its taproot can grow into compacted ground. It can pull material from deeper layers. When plants die and break down, they contribute organic matter. In a mixed lawn or wild area, dandelions may be part of a living system. This does not mean you must let them take over everything. It means the plant is not automatically meaningless. In one place you remove it. In another you harvest it. In another you leave it for bees. In another you let it help cover bare soil. That is intelligent management. Blind hatred is not management. It is just habit. Now, let's bring in the emotional truth. People hate dandelions because they are hard to control.
Flowers become seasonal ingredients, roots become roasted drink, seeds become a lesson in design, the plant becomes pollinator support, the yard becomes a living map, and you become the kind of person who looks twice before destroying something. That is the real change. So next time you see a dandelion, do not rush. Look at the leaves, look at the flower. Think about the root underground. Ask where it grew. Ask whether it is clean. Ask whether it belongs there. Ask whether you should leave it for bees. Harvest a little, remove it carefully, or simply let it be. That pause may feel small. It is not. Because once you stop seeing dandelion as just a lawn problem, you may start seeing your whole yard differently. And once you see your yard differently, you may start seeing the world differently too. There may be useful things growing right outside your door, not rare, not expensive, not advertised, just waiting for someone to recognize them. Now tell me in the comments, have you ever eaten dandelion leaves, flowers, or roasted root? Or have you been fighting them your whole life without knowing what they could become? And if you want more videos about ordinary plants people throw away, even though they may be useful, subscribe to the channel because the next one may already be growing right outside your door.